Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each week at the Dr. Diane Show, we will have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. This week, I'm excited to welcome Kenny Liu. He is the founder and CEO of Spring Aqua. Kenny has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years with extensive international experience building businesses in the US, Canada, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, and is fluent in English and Mandarin. He has been heavily involved in marketing, sales, business development, and fundraising. Kenny has worked with professional sports, nutritionals, beauty products, international business expansion, digital platform development, and his current venture is Spring Aqua Water. So welcome, Kenny. How are you today?
That's a crazy intro. Love that. Thank you very much for having me today. It's wonderful to be on the show.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I talk about revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. And I wanted to have you on as my guest because I believe that you have created a revolutionary water filtration system that I'm excited to educate our listeners about today. And we're going to learn that clean, healthy water is not just about filtering out toxins and chemicals. There's a lot more to it than that. And we met a few months ago, and I was really impressed and excited about what you're doing. And so I'm excited to bring you today to all of our listeners to talk a little bit more about that. You have a great article in our July issue of Natural Nutmeg on clean your tap water of toxins and chemicals. So let's talk a little bit. I love to start with just getting a background on you and how you got involved in all of this and kind of where you're going, a little bit about what the company is about.
Well, 2014, I was doing some work in Southeast Asia and in China. And we were there was a US-based company that wanted to take supplements, like whole food supplements in health and wellness. That's something that's more bioavailable. And they were wanting to take this into the Asian market. And so they reached out to me. I live in Seattle. And so we made a trip to Taiwan to make I was going to do some leadership training and also do some translating in that meeting as well. And it was that meeting, a group of people came together from, different industries. And I think it was 7 days, just going back and forth, different options, different methods on doing business. And there's a gentleman called Mr. Xiao. He ended up reaching out to me afterwards and saying, hey, you're that little kid I want to work with. Okay. And he said to me, why don't you come back and, let's talk about building businesses and talking about the future, talking about all the different things we can do together. So, the meeting was very fruitful. And then I went back to Seattle, told my wife, hey, we got to go back. At least I got to go back and I've got to meet someone very important. He wants to meet with me in person, in private. So I went back to Taiwan 2 weeks later and we sat in the McDonald's. He goes, wow, this is the American dream, so start talking about how McDonald's was built. It's quite fascinating, like how other people around the world think about different franchises, what America's built, right?
Right.
And, but it was a fruitful conversation. That's when I really got to know him. He was the guy who originally developed the Rubik's Cube, that little toy, right, that everybody plays with. He went to Europe and met the Austrian-Hungarian inventor and got the development rights in the early 70s. And wow. That was his kind of first major success. And still today, we play with the Rubik's Cube. All the kids buy it and play with it. He's the guy who also developed his own EKG and his own ultrasound and ventilators. So very familiar in engineering, manufacturing, working with the US FDA, getting approval. So I was very familiar with many, many different processes. right? And
Fascinating.
then definitely fast. And then, so I realized I have never met someone like this, never. And so we talked about things that he was really passionate about. So like clean air was one thing big in his mind, and renewable energy, and then water was kind of an interesting subject popped out. And we talked a lot about water, all the different experiences it had with making different products related to water, and that water is kind of a very broad subject. Everything needs it, right? From food processing, manufacturing, to humans, to plants, to Mother Earth, to even entertainment that we swim in it too. So,
Mhm.
so it's a very good conversation that led to just me basically. Now I call him my godfather. We got really, really close, and his vision was, he wanted to develop something, and kind of had me, because I know both cultures, build that bridge towards the east and the west, and the west and the east, right? Kind of build that bridge to build the. I know cultures of the U.S. and culture how of the Asian different countries and how they work, and he wanted me to see if we can bridge some of that together and create some ideas and work together. And so go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, the thing that fascinated me so much about this whole story and about
Mm-hmm.
you is that I work with a lot of different holistic practitioners, and they're constantly, telling their patients how to eat,
Mm-hmm.
how much water to drink, the supplements to take, all of this. And yet they're not really talking about, no one is talking about the quality of the water, really, other than saying, okay, make sure your water's filtered. But we're going to go way beyond that today, which is
Right.
fascinating. And it's such a it's like the forgotten thing that we're not focusing on, because it's, in a way, it's so simple, but yet it's really complex when you think about the kind of water, how much water, how to filter it, the minerals, and all the things that you're going to teach us about today. Because you can eat healthy and you can take as many supplements as you want, but if you're not drinking the right kind of water that we're going to learn about, a lot of that's irrelevant. And,
You know,
we have practitioners, working to try to get people better from chronic disease and things like that. And that's to me, I feel like a huge missing component.
mhm. It's interesting you say that, because the conversation we had, if you look at some of the, if you work with, we work with several anthropologists, and the one especially is the Gina Bria from the Hydration Foundation. And if you looked at history of mankind, from even the Egyptians, they used ceramic vessels to carry the water and charge it and clean it. And you got the Incas in South America, they use the same thing, ceramic vessels do the same thing. And then you have the Indians in the the South continent of India, they use copper vessels. And many, many cultures in the past, they use sunlight, right? The water and sunlight, the energy comes in, does the healing and does the cleaning, and then they would drink it. So one of the curious questions that came up is, well, what are we doing today? Right?
Yeah. What do we use?
So,
Plastic.
right. Well, I don't want to be so mean,
Yeah.
but
It's the
there's
truth.
definitely, I mean, there's plastic. There is now using chemicals in tap water to treat it, obviously, from chlorines to chloramines and fluoride. There's even, reverse osmosis. I mean, what are the natural remedies today that we're doing? And you look at that and we realize none of it mimic nature, right? So they kind of gave us a very natural starting point. Say, okay, well, we've got to find a way to bring nature back into water. And if you
Mhm.
look at the history of all these different cultures and what they did, you kind of get an idea, well, why were they doing that? And obviously it made sense when they did it. And how do we bring that back into our home, right? So we basically looked at different springs around the world. We said, well, the best place to start is to look at the springs that people are going to bathe, right? And so the one famous one's the Lord Springs in France, where it's estimated about 4 to 6 million people go there every year to bathe. It's
Wow.
crazy. And also the Northern Springs in Germany is another very famous one. And there's some in Japan, some in this, I mean, they're literally everywhere. So once you study the different springs and you can understand like the ecosystem, a little bit of the ecology of how it's made, and then the rock layers, that's very important, right? And also the water composition, you have an idea kind of how to replicate that. Okay. But then you have another challenge. I can't really build a mountain in a box, because I mean, houses are too small. So I
Mhm.
can't put a mountain in your house under the sink, right? So we really have to understand the chemistry, the physics. We have to go deep a little bit to understand the different processes and how every process works, why they have this particular layer, how come the water has these type of minerals, and how it's structured, right?
Yep.
So from the whole process, what's happening was we worked with a different Professor Henry was one person worked with. He was the guy who came with the original idea on to put this together. We also worked with different universities in Taiwan to do some collaboration. And once we had it figured out, we were able to mimic, okay, the different layers on the rock and the mountain and put into what I call 14 different filters, right? So think of your house underneath your sink. You have like 2 boxes with 14 different filters mimicking the different layers, right? And in essence, what we did was we turned the tap water in your house into a spring. That was the concept. And so we had a good starting point, because if you understand anthropology, and I always say anthropologists save the day because they bring meaning to my life, understanding the history of different cultures and what they did, we were able to do a lot of the work, go in the right direction from the get-go to really understand if Mother Nature had it right in the very first place. We know the water was clean, it was hydrating. What can we do today to bring that back so you can have it in your house every day?
Yeah, that's just amazing. When you think about it, what all of what it takes to create a system like this to be able to mimic, the most amazing springs in the world for sure. So that's really cool. One thing I want to focus on, and this was one of the things that kind of blew my mind, and we're gonna coming up on a break, but we're gonna talk about more about this one when we get back. But essentially, the recommendation to drink 8 glasses of water is kind of thrown out the window after you talk to you because or Gina Bria. I mean,
Mhm.
because I felt like, there were times where I would drink more than 8 glasses of water and I still felt thirsty. And I used to
Mhm.
ask myself, like, this is crazy. Like, why am I drinking all this water? And all I'm going to the bathroom every 5 minutes. First of all, I feel like I'm not even absorbing it. And I still feel thirsty. Something is not right here. Like that kind of always nagged at the back of my mind. And whether I didn't never came across research or didn't spend enough time to investigate it, when I finally met you and Gina and learned about what is considered structured water, it made complete sense to me. Like, aha, like that light bulb, duh.
That's right.
It's not about just drink more and more and more. If you're dehydrated, you need to drink more water. No, your body's not absorbing what you're drinking. So we're going to get to that. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we will explore more with Kenny Lou and Spring Aqua. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Before we continue on, I want to make sure everyone knows how to get in touch with me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or my publication, www.naturalnutmeg.com. And we are talking today with Kenny Lou of Spring Aqua. You can learn more about Spring Aqua at www.springaqua.info/natural nutmeg. So welcome back, Kenny. We left on our break just introducing the idea of structured water. And I was saying, there's so many times where I've drank the recommended 8 glasses a day or more and still felt thirsty. And, basically been running to the bathroom every 5 minutes and always wondered, why is that? It's not making sense to me. I feel like my body's not absorbing it. And essentially that's exactly what is happening. So I learned about structured water with you and Gina. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I bet there's people who have never even heard that term.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people have probably drank a lot of water and they still feel thirsty or they feel really bloated. And no matter, I've heard this so many times where they keep drinking, they don't feel hydrated,
Mhm.
right? So I think hydration on a broader spectrum comes in 3 different forms. Obviously, you can eat your hydration through your fruits and vegetables, your watermelons. So that is a common thing you'll find is we talked about structured water. You also should exercise as well, right? That helps the motion of liquid in your body, transports the water around. And the third is obviously what we're talking about. You need to drink hopefully we can get the right type of water in the body. That's the goal. And so we talked about earlier the ecosystem in the box. So what's actually happening there? Well, first, before we even talk about structured water, I think the water needs to be clean, right? Because nowadays with all the, I mean, everyone's concerned about clean water.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's concerned about PFAS, microplastics. They're concerned about fluoride, chlorine, chloramines. I mean, they just want the water to be clean so their body doesn't have to deal with the contaminants. So we have to get that covered, and we get that covered so we can move on. And then what is structured water? And that's sometimes it's complicated. Well, it's really simple. Water comes in 3 different phases. We know water as a liquid, okay? We know water as a solid, like an ice cube, and we know water as a gas, steam, right? Well, structured water is a phase where it's in between what I call a liquid and a solid. It's in between there. It's 10% more concentrated than liquid, okay? That's what it is. So some people call like a gel-like form or plasma, but really it's still pretty fluid. It's just like water, but it's just 10% more concentrated. And that's the type of water you find inside a blueberry or a strawberry or an apple and a pear or your kale, your broccoli, but the plants, the aloe vera plant, the cactus plant. Yeah. And that's the type of water you find up in the spring in that form or that phase. And it got its fame because anthropologists were looking at indigenous cultures in deserts. And just as you say, we're supposed to drink 8 glasses of water a day to survive. Well, how do those guys survive?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm just saying.
They're not drinking 8 glasses a day.
They're still there and they're living happily, so how do they survive? So that kind of was my aha moment. Well, we probably should look at what they're doing because they're not getting any water and very little, right? So what we found out was they were actually eating their hydration. So the water was locked in the plants, in the cactus plants or in the roots, right? Mm-hmm. And when they studied the water inside the plants, they found that it was structured water. It was in a phase that's 10% more concentrated. So what that means that water is more bioavailable to the body. That water has the ability to penetrate the cell membrane, go into the cells, right? That water is much more easily absorbed. And so you can drink a lot less and yet be better hydrated. So that was the aha moment. Again, anthropologists helped a lot to really understand why they were doing it. So all we did was we figured out how to kind of recreate that process using natural minerals, right? So when we do it, it's under your sink, comes out already structured. As the water goes to different minerals, it's the same. Try to keep it the same quality as it in the springs. And so that's what I say. That's why, and I think hopefully we do a good job educating the structured water. I think it's really important that we understand what that really is.
Right. Yeah. And you can actually tell the difference visually and when you drink the water for sure. I mean, and it's interesting because I have my own system. And then we had it at a conference and I was able to try it there. And I tried it at a couple different practitioners that have a system in their practices in Connecticut. And every single time, it's, oh, wow, like it looks a little different. It definitely has a different mouthfeel to it. It's almost like thicker is not the right word. Like you said, it's still very fluid, but there's something almost like velvety about it, I guess is how I would describe it. Yeah, definitely. So, you're drinking. Silky. Yeah. You're drinking something that is not your ordinary tap water or any other kind of filtered water experience that I've ever had, or water out of a glass bottle, the glass bottle, or water delivered by, a company that's getting it from Springs. Definitely nothing like that. So it's interesting. It's interesting for sure.
Yeah. And also I want to add a couple of things, because when we looked at the water in the springs, we also realized it had minerals. Interesting, right?
Yep.
And minerals are actually, if you look at minerals, it doesn't replace the minerals that you actually eat, but these minerals are good because minerals are important for water in terms of hydration purposes. Okay, so if you want better water that's more hydrating, water in its natural states, comes with the calcium, the iron, the copper, the zinc, the selenium, all these different micronutrients that are important for your health. And so we've kind of figured out a way to put that back in naturally, but that also creates the natural alkalinity. Interesting, right?
Right.
So it's got the natural alkalinity of a 9.0 to 9.5 on the one side. On the other side, it has a natural alkalinity of a 7.4 to 7.8. Very interesting how this all works out. So if we're able to kind of look at the springs understand the rock layers to get a good idea what's going on, you can create a water that's clean, right? And then that's structured. And I'll also put the minerals back in for hydration purposes that puts the natural alkalinity as well. Yeah.
Right. And there's another thing that you do, and that is
Oh,
you add hydrogen
that's
to
right.
your
Forgot
system.
about that.
Yeah, yeah. So why is that important? I mean, I think some people are starting to become more familiar with hydrogen water, and there's a couple of companies out there that do it. But why did you choose to add that?
Well, in the Lords, if you actually look at the water, there was actually a decent amount of hydrogen gas in the water, right? And then when you look at all the research done with hydrogen gas and even just we call it molecular hydrogen, there's about 500 to 1,000 studies now, if not more, coming every day as a benefit I call it a very potent or major antioxidant. Okay, and the reason that's important because I mean today, probably in today's society, with the amount of stress people are going through and the toxins that we're exposed to, there's probably more free radicals in our body more than ever today than it had, say, 30, 40 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how free radicals basically hurt us or harm us is they steal electrons from your blood, your bones, and your organs. And basically over time, your body gets weak and there's an imbalance, okay? Now, we've always heard, maybe on your show, or maybe what you promote, health and wellness. We always talk about you should eat your greens, your fruits and vegetables. You always take your antioxidants because that's important for your health, right? We hear it all the time.
Yep.
And the reason why we do that is because those antioxidant food have the ability to donate that extra electron to the free radical in your body. So it helps neutralize the free radicals, right? It just turns out that the hydrogen gas is the most, I don't know if there's a word for this, but the biggest donator of electron of them all by a mile. It's very significant. So one glass of our water, and by the way, the hydrogen gas we make, we figured out how to dissolve it. It's made naturally without using any sort of electricity. So there's no power to the machine. It's all based on just gravity, right? And gravity and pressure from the water pipes. But one glass of our water, you're looking at, maybe consuming 4 bags of spinach in antioxidant value. Or maybe consuming, some people say it's maybe 700 plus bananas in antioxidant value. So if you want what I call the rocket fuel to your health, well, yes, there's a word for that, then we say the hydrogen water is what you need. And if you want the foundation to your health, in other words, drinking water that's hydrating, then we say you got to take the structured water, right? So they kind of come together because, I mean, the hydrogen water and the structured water is made together, right? The left handle on our faucet gives that clean, structured water that people can use for drinking, for coffee, for tea, for the cats, for the pets, the plants, right? Also for soaking your fruits and vegetables. I was just on a call with another doctor, Christopher, he's a regenerative agriculture, and he was able to demonstrate where he took 2 kale heads, soaked one in the water, and took the other one, soaked in his regular water. And he said the one that was soaked in the regular water turned yellow in about 5 days after he put it back in the fridge, and ours in 2 weeks turned yellow. Very
Wow,
interesting
that's
what it
amazing.
does. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're doing little dabble in the regenerative agriculture. Well, we're getting into it because we have good technology to help Mother Earth and also help the soil. But the idea is you have your structured water, and then on the other side you have your same water structure, but it adds the hydrogen, and it also makes it alkaline from 9.0 to 9.5. So you've got the foundation to the health, hydration, and you also got your rocket booster.
Yeah, well, that's good news for a lot of people because one, there's no way you're going to eat 700 bananas in a day. And there's a lot of other people who don't like spinach.
It's true.
I'm imagining people are like, yay, I don't have to eat those gross green veggies anymore.
That's true. Yeah.
That's too funny. So that's fascinating. We have a bunch of more questions that I want to get to for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And one quick one that I think we can answer before we go to a quick break for sure is if if people live like in an apartment or they're renting at home, and I know the answer to this is yes, because we rent right now.
Mhm.
Can it's easy to install the system and move it and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, it's very easy to install, uninstall with help, with diagrams, with videos, also FaceTime if they need. It's designed that you can easily unhook it, take it with you, or put it together. And there's many ways to put it together. There's portable ways, standalone ways, under the sink ways. I mean, it's good water, so people get very creative. And I'm
Mhm.
just sharing on what customers have done. They send us their pictures and go, wow, we're fascinated. People find a way to make it work, because usually when you're renting, it's temporary, not forever. So they know the water is there for the next 15 to 20 years for the rest of their lives, and they want it right away. So we make adjustments all the time.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, you're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll be talking more about structured water with Kenny Lou. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today with Kenny Lou, the founder and CEO of Spring Aqua. And you can learn more about Spring Aqua at www.springaqua.info/natural nutmeg. So welcome back, Kenny. We've been talking about some fascinating things related to water and essentially what is structured water and why we need to clean our tap water. I think everybody knows that we need to do that now, but the Spring Aqua is a pretty amazing system. I've been using it myself now for about 2.5 months, I think, or so. And I definitely, I was saying earlier that one of the things that was driving me crazy was I was drinking 8+ glasses of water a day and running to the bathroom every 5 minutes and still feeling thirsty. And I have to say, like, I'm probably drinking half the amount with the Spring
Mhm.
Aqua system. And I have definitely noticed a huge difference. And I just love the way it tastes and feels and all that good stuff. So um, I have a bunch of questions for you, and
Uh-oh.
from from people who've asked me questions. I mean, I've been talking about it, to pretty much everybody because I just
Right.
love the system, and I wanted to run through a couple of the common questions that people ask me all the time, because I'm sure that other people who are listening to this are thinking the same thing. So one of the big ones I get is a lot of people tell me they have a reverse osmosis system in their house.
Mhm.
So what's the major difference between the Spring Aqua system and reverse osmosis?
Reverse osmosis actually, if you're looking at clean water, making sure it's really clean, it's actually really good at doing that. It's amazing. And in fact, it'll pretty much take pretty much knock all of the contaminants out. So it's a really good clean water system. But once there's nothing left in the water, then some people say the water is pretty much dead. There's no energy to it, no life to it. So the big difference is, you know, we focus more on how nature makes water, right? So if you're just having the concept of an ecosystem in a box, just picture that mountain of spring water, and it's in your house under your sink, and it cleans the water. Now we don't use the way that we don't use reverse osmosis method. We use nano filters, a little bit different. So we do get 99% of the stuff out of everything that we need to clean it up, but we also add the structuring, the remineralization in to bring life back into water. And so I say to people, it's just visual differences from a picture standpoint. One is a mountain of spring water under the sink, and other one's just purely clean water. That's the big difference, right? And so we do have a lot of customers that have the reverse osmosis system, and sometimes they've already spent quite a bit of money on it, so they want to keep it. And what we do is we then connect that water into our machine. So we find ways to embrace, we want to embrace everybody and collaborate and help everybody else. We found many ways to work together, right, to make it better for everybody else.
Yeah, right. So it's just compatible. It's not like you have to eliminate that system to put your
Mm-hmm.
system in and can use it in
And
conjunction with.
well, some people also want just want to get rid of it. It's fine,
Right.
So if they do want to get rid of it, we just want to make sure we know the zip code. We know what type of water that's coming to the house. Is it city water? Is it well water? Is the water coming, from a different state, right? Once we know that source water, we're able to, give them the correct pre-filters, right? So the reverse osmosis really eliminates the fact that you need pre-filters, but if they don't have it, And some people do want to change it out. We certainly can change it out and get them the right pre-filter so that they have the right setup.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned well water because that's another question I get a lot. In Connecticut here, there's a lot of people on well water. So does that, I mean, is there any issues with that, or what would you recommend for somebody who has well water?
Well water is really tricky, right? Because we don't know what's coming out of the well. Okay.
Hmm.
Most of the time it's clean water. Sometimes it has contamination, sometimes what they call a lot of PFAS out there. That's the fire hydrant chemical they use. Sometimes it has different types of toxic metals. So we recommend well water customers either most of the time, they're going to have a whole house system in place already or a water softener in place. So if they have that, that works very well with our system. If they don't have any of that and just have well coming out, they can still use our system, but it's going to be a little bit of hand holding for the first 3 to 6 months so we can understand if that water is going to change and what we have to do to make tweaks and adjustments. Make sense? I
Hmm.
mean, it's the water, we don't know exactly how, but most cases we have well water pre-filters is going to work. Now, if it gets too complicated, then we can always add other, other remedies that we've come up with many customers over the last 3 to 5 years. And so we just basically say, okay, step one, we'll just put it in. Step two, we'll monitor. Step three, we'll add these necessary filters or these necessary costs that we'll tell them up front, right? On how this is all going to look like. Eventually, we'll find the perfect balance. Once we have that, then basically they're on the regular filter renewal schedule. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a
Yep.
little bit of more involvement just because they're on the well. And if they have studies, we do want to see the tests because those will help. Those will help us, make a better make a more accurate predetermination.
Yeah, and it also obviously makes a big difference where you live. Like a lot of we also have a magazine in Naples, essentialnaples.com. And so people in Florida generally tend to have a lot more issues with chemicals and toxins in their water than what I've learned about in Connecticut. So you guys have a whole system in terms of figuring out, based on where you live in the country, what the water is like and how much level of filtration I guess you need and all of that, right?
Yeah, that's been the journey of our company. When we started first up in Seattle, the water here is pretty decent. So our first system worked really well. And then the Californians found out very quickly about this. They're very progressive, want to be healthy, being forefront of wellness. So they got our system and we ran into a ton of challenges because the water in Southern California, in San Diego, in LA, wow, it's not easy to deal with, right? So we just had to understand the source water. So if you guys know, I mean, I think in Connecticut, the water is pretty decent, but when you go to Florida, the water is very different. The
Hmm.
tap water is different. The water, say, in Chicago is different than water down in Louisiana, right? And the water, if you find over in, I think, Arizona, Las Vegas, Southern Texas, West Virginia, where the fracking is going on, or closer to where chemical plants are, that water is very different as well too. So,
Right.
so it's been a journey for us to really understand different zip codes. So we get the zip codes. We have data that we've collected over the last 5 years. We have local dealers to help us provide data as well, right? So we can get the right pre-filters, the right design, the right setup. And the idea is so the consumer knows they're at peace with the process. They know that they can be assured that the water is, at least clean. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad we're having this conversation. Like as we're talking, the more I'm thinking about, just how important this is. And especially for people who are dealing with chronic illnesses or diseases. I mean, we've kind of been mostly talking about it from a preventative standpoint, but I know, many people who are already struggling with cancer, other kinds of diagnoses. And I don't think sometimes people take into consideration how important this really is. Like I said, when we were talking in the beginning, I talked to practitioners and they're talking about how important food is and how important supplements is and how important exercise and lifestyle and all of that. And no one's really talking about water. And yet it is huge. I mean, to me, that's the missing link for a lot of people as to why I think they don't get better. And I even know people who will swear that the reason they got a particular disease was because their water was unclean. And it's just, I just want more people to be more aware of how important it is. And, whether you're using it for a preventative standpoint or you have, a health issue that you're dealing with, this is something to take very seriously and, make sure you're drinking not only the cleanest water you can, but structured water. I mean, that's going to help with all of your biochemical, physiological processes, adding the hydrogen to it, everything that, that you guys do. I think it's just so important. And I want more people to be more educated about it for sure.
You said one thing right. The education is a key. I mean, that's how I think you can change the world. That's how you can create a movement to let people understand that it's not just water, but it's hydration. It's the ability to absorb the water, body utilizes it, and hydration in the proper levels. I mean, they can trace from the recent studies they've shown, you can actually measure cognitive benefit losses at 2% dehydration. It's crazy. It's a very subtle thing that just being a little dehydrated, you start losing that benefit. And they can trace that back at 10% dehydration. They can link it to pretty much all major chronic illnesses, right? So we do take our supplements, we exercise, we eat the right foods, but there's also something that we need to take to help move the toxins out, the detox. We also need something to harmonize all the frequency contamination our body's been, kind of exposed to, right? And so the best harmonizing mechanism we've found is water, right? So if you get good structured water in your body, it can certainly, and science has shown structured water done properly definitely enhances what they call the bioelectrical signaling. So basically enhances cellular communication of the full body. It raises the coherency of all the water molecules in the body, so they're realigned together so you can function, and it increases what they call the electrical function of the body, okay? And we kind of, that doesn't make sense to us because we always think about brain chemistry and all the different chemistries, but majority of your body, if you look at it, we operate on by electrical function. If you don't believe it, just take your finger, put in the plug, and you know that you're a good conductor. We talk about the EKGs, the ultrasound, that's all electrical function, right? And so good water helps with that process. So we don't really think of it that way, but if we start thinking about it, if you knew your body was 70% mass of water, but 99% of that is by water molecules, you'll certainly start thinking about, I probably should be drinking better water. I should probably should looking at hydration as something that's actually important. And the things you can't go a day without it. That's the crazy part of it,
Yeah, you can go a long time without food.
That's right.
But not without water, that's for sure. And, even from a financial perspective and eco-friendly perspective, all these people that are running around buying, like filtered water in water, hopefully not plastic anymore, but obviously, I still see tons of people walking around with that. But even glass, they buy water that's bottled in glass and all that kind of stuff. I mean, when you really think about the cost of that kind of buying bottled water every month, or even if you buy like Poland Spring or whatever, you have it delivered to your house, it's so much more expensive than having the system in your home. So I talk to people about it from a financial perspective too, and also eco-friendly, like stop with all the plastic water bottles, please. Awesome. So we've got a few more things to talk about. We're going to go to a short break right now. I'm Dr. Diane Hayden with the Dr. Diane Show. We're talking to Kenny Liu from Spring Aqua. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today to Kenny Liu, the founder and CEO of Spring Aqua, which is a cutting-edge system revolutionizing the in-home water filtration market. And I was just on a rant about plastic water bottles. And just, first of all, I have a whole thing about plastic, like I think no one should be eating or drinking out of plastic, but that's a whole nother thing. Even if you're, purchasing water that's in glass bottles, just the cost of that and having to do that every single month is crazy. I mean, I know that I've had the system for 2 months, and we were just chatting during the break. And yeah, I mean, I haven't even had to think about, where am I going to get I've got to go get water at, wherever, Costco or grocery store, wherever I get it. So let's talk a little bit just about the savings in terms of working with you guys and all the different options that you offer.
It's really a peace of mind because we used to never hang out. My family, before I started the company back in 2016 in America, we used to go to the well and line up and get the water from the well. And the lines would be so long that I would go 2 o'clock in the morning and there's still a line, but shorter. Right? And we used to do that all the time for about 2 or 3 years. And before that, I remember just drinking out of a tap and bottle. So we've evolved over time. But now we actually hang out in the kitchen. We're all sitting there and our glasses in the water. And my daughter says, Dad, get some water in the kitchen. And they go there and they actually, so it's convenient. It's so convenient. It's always there. And now I begin to take it for granted because it's just there. I don't want to think about it. Subconsciously, it's there, right? The other things when we go out, we don't buy bottled water. We don't drink restaurant water. We just take our water with us. And if we do forget, we'll actually turn around and go back and get it. It's coming to a new habit,
Right.
for new things. But if we did the cost analysis from all our systems and we looked at the upfront cost, the filter maintenance cost, and they all have warranty. So our most expensive system is the Wet Sevens. It's the most popular, but that system has a 15-year warranty. And we did a cost analysis on that from the amount of money we spend, and we did it by the gallon. Interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
It turns out to be anywhere between 60 to 80 cents per gallon. Yeah, that's what it costs. And so it takes a little bit deep dive to understand and we have to average it over the lifespan of the warranty for 15 years because we drink water every year or every day, so it's hard to put a cost per day. But if you look at the period, that's what it turns out to be. So from that standpoint, we do have very, very good banks that have decided to partner with us because they realize consumers are already spending money on water out there, right? And what can we do and to do a study on how much they're already spending, which is generally between 60 to $100 a month on water, okay? What can we do to create a scenario where if they wanted to get something like ours, they could finance it or pay it outright, but have it available for under, $40 to $60 a month, but they own it, right? So that was a process in 2016 when I got together with many different banks to understand that. They're the ones teaching me that water is like the most important thing they're looking at right now. That was like 5 years ago.
Wow, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I knew it was the right trend.
Yeah. But listen, I mean, $40 a month, you're spending way more on plastic water or bottled water or, your Poland Spring or whatever.
Right.
Way more than that. So that's amazing. And like you said, you have it forever.
Yeah. And we embrace, I know plastic is bad, but we embrace everybody. Everyone has a life. They have to make choices. So the best is to give them the education, let them understand what they're getting, and have them make a good decision, and our company's heart-centered that way, that we're always available to answer questions, to help them out, and even with troubleshooting from installations, from setup, right, from design look, we do all that. We'll be more than happy to help everyone else.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So couple more quick questions. What's the difference between Spring Aqua and an alkaline water ionizer?
Wow, that's a common question. An alkaline water ionizers, I believe it's the machines that use electricity with the metal plates, right?
Yep.
And so what I've learned over the few years how that works, it's pretty simple. The water comes in from the water source, which is the tap, and then there are some pre-filters that happen to clean it out, and then that runs it through the machine. So what happens is the minerals in the water react with the metal plates, and some have 3 plates, 5 plates, 9 plates, 7 plates. That's what's actually happening. And you got what they call the plus and the minus. The cathode and the anode creates the charge, separates the molecules, and you have your acid water and you have your alkaline water. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how that's made. And I love everybody, so I don't want to, get into a like apples and orange comparison, right? But I just say to people, look at it from an ecosystem in a box perspective, right? One, we don't use electricity. We don't waste any water. Our approach is completely different. We looked at the mountain. We studied why the indigenous desert people were eating. They had no water, but how did they get hydrated? We also looked at the history of different cultures, why they use ceramic, why do they use copper vessels, to understand how can we recreate nature in water using natural minerals and natural process of Mother Earth, right? And so that took a while, but once we figured that out, we're able to put that in 14 different filters. So it cleans the water first, then it structures it, then it adds the minerals, natural minerals, makes the natural alkalinity, and also has the hydrogen. So we just found a different way of processing or developing water a little differently than, say, an alkaline water ionizer does, or reverse osmosis, or distilled water, or just other filters out there in general. We just took a completely different approach. And that's the approach I feel is a little more wholesome, but it kind of gives you a visual that, hey, we're now taking your tap water in your house and we're making it into a spring. That's a powerful statement. Yeah.
It is. And that's what really attracted me to it for sure. It's just the whole focus on bringing nature inside essentially, and, giving people the opportunity to be able to drink their water as close to these natural springs as possible. So that's amazing. I mean, and your company does have a whole great focus on just giving back and, protecting the earth and all of that.
Well, we learned that through our last segment we had with Gina and Bria from the Hydration Foundation. When they studied our water, they go, wait a second, you guys are thinking a little bigger. We're not just here promoting like clean water for families and animals and pets and humans, which is all good. But they're saying that there's a much greater movement behind all of us, and that is Mother Earth needs water recovered, right? And so structured water, because of the coherency, the ability to detoxify the planet, it's actually healing for Mother Earth, and that kind of helped our company, open up the heart a little bit more to tell consumers, hey, we're all part of a bigger movement. And that is, if you get the system, or you take the water and water the plants, right? Or people are now coming to us from different agricultural backgrounds and say, hey, can we develop products that helps regenerative agriculture, helps hydrate the soil? So it's kind of now not just me and talking about the health. Now it's kind of a full embracing the whole full mission, right, of trying to be a water recovery generation.
Right. So it's come full circle, actually.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's heart-centered. We love doing it. It's education. We love collaborating with people. We love learning about new things and how we can make things better, and we want to embrace everybody, right?
Right. Exactly. I mean, you can't get any better than that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kenny, for being on with us today. This has been fascinating information. I'm sure that people are going to be reaching out to you with more questions. So I appreciate all your time. And for those of you, again, who have tuned in today, you can find out more information about Spring Aqua at www.springaqua.info/natural nutmeg. I want to thank you all for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific. Next week on the show, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I will see you back here next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.